You're listening to Power Talk, Berkeley Electric Cooperative's official broadcast about the cooperative, our communities, and ways to use energy wisely. And now, let's join our hosts for today's episode. Good morning and welcome to Power Talk. This is Micah Ponce, the Communications and Media Specialist here at Berkeley Electric Cooperative, joined as always by Miss Libby Roig, the Director of Marketing and Communications.
Good morning, Micah. It's another great day at Camp Co-op, as Mark Gaddy used to say.
It's a good day, but somebody's been in my studio and has messed with my chair. I feel like I'm at the little kids' table.
I feel like that may have been me.
Something's not right.
It seems like somebody forced me to run the control board last time.
Okay, we're going that way this morning. All right, okay. Out of the gate. Remember, we have guests.
Okay, yes,
right.
Sorry.
And our guests are here. We have Mr. Tommy Harvey, the Vice President of Operations. Welcome, sir.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
And Mr. Ashby Freeman, a line foreman out of Goose Creek.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Not a problem. Well, one of the things that we always do, we welcome everybody to the show, and first of all, Ashby, we got to get the formalities out of the way since you're new to the show, Power Talk, first time ever. You're part of now of an elite club who has a fancy little coffee mug that you can put somewhere together dust.
Yep, appreciate it.
Yep, not a problem at all. And the other thing that we do is, sometimes there's gaps between times when we have people on or we've got new folks on. So we always ask our new guests to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about where you came from and how you ended up here at BEC, and we'll let Tommy start. He's a pro at this. He can sort of give everybody a real quick refresher on his illustrious career here.
Yeah, illustrious. I like it.
I'd like to point out that Tommy brought notes today. It's going down.
No, so
he's got some data.
Yeah, I did.
Share.
I did bring a little bit of research. So, my name's Tommy Harvey. I'm the Vice President of Operations, which is to say that I oversee water line crews and right-of-way crews get done in the field. 90-something of those personnel, scattered across 3 counties and 4 districts. So it's a lot to keep up with, but certainly enjoy the role and enjoy working with all the guys. So.
And Tommy, you came up through the ranks.
I did. I came in 99. Yeah, I think it was 99. Started as a helper. Yeah, a line helper, I think was the title back then, and was able to progress gradually through our line training program, and then was fortunate enough to be selected for a management role, some 8 years ago.
And one of the first times I met Tommy, he had a rake in his hand.
Oh yeah,
I don't think that's been happening for quite a while.
No, not a week or two, but it could happen tomorrow. So.
Well, the other guy who's familiar with the tools of the trade is our other guest, Mr. Ashby Freeman. So, Ashby, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown on where you came from and how you end up here and what you do for the co-op?
All right. So now I'm a line foreman, but just like Tommy stated, he started as a helper. I did too. Worked up through the apprenticeship, made a journeyman lineman, and now line foreman. I work in the Goose Creek district, and we do the heavy construction underground crew.
All right. You mentioned real quick, you said you were a journeyman lineman, and Tommy said he came in as a lineman apprentice or a helper or a groundsman, or what are the different levels to the lineman career path?
Well, years ago we all started as helpers, but now they got a tier, basically 1, 2, 3, and 4. You start as an apprentice 1 now, and then you go to a journeyman B, journeyman A, or they call it lineman 1, lineman 2 now. Yep,
journeyman 1, journeyman 2, and then a journeyman 1, correct.
Okay.
Journeyman 2 is our step next to a foreman.
So. Okay.
Yep.
And then we have foremans and superintendents.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And throughout the process, as you're progressing through those different levels, there's certain education markers and training hours put in.
Yep.
So
we go to basically programs in the summertime.
Yep.
Classes, you got to pass those classes.
Yep.
Take tests. It's a pretty good little program we have going.
Yeah, so they have OJT, on the job training book for each classification that folks like Ashby complete with their subordinates, with their crew. Certain tasks that they have to be involved in every year, in every step of progression, and obviously those tasks become more involved and more complex as they progress through, up through journeyman 2. That no longer continues for a foreman, obviously, but the foreman is the one that signs off on each task as it's completed in the OJT. So it's a whole stepped, progressive route that they take in up to, obviously, the ultimate goal is to be a journeyman too, and then a lot of folks want to be a foreman, obviously. So that's all part of it.
Yep.
Yeah. And a little bit of background about our Goose Creek district. You know, of the 135,000 services that Berkeley Electric serves throughout the Tri-County, like Tommy mentioned, about half of those are in our Goose Creek district.
Yep.
So you guys are
We're busy.
hopping.
Yep.
And I live in Crowfield, so
Yep.
I appreciate all y'all's service.
Keep the lights burning.
Yeah, for the most part.
We did have a little hiccup a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, which was a strange experience because power never goes out there.
Never.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that snow, unexpected little cars running into poles. There's always something that keeps the job interesting, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we talk about the reliability of underground is great, but at some point it comes above the ground.
Yes,
and,
exactly. So
you know,
overhead feeds that substation.
Yep.
Yep. Our provider.
Well, we're here today to talk about a variety of things, especially when things go south. When there's problems either here or home or abroad. There's the co-ops are always out there looking to. We have a cooperative principle called cooperation among cooperatives. That's a lot of C's.
Yeah.
It's a lot of cooperation.
Yeah, it's
But
easy for you to say.
But anyway, there's times when things go down, and we're out there, helping other co-ops, or they're coming in to assist us,
Yeah.
and we call that mutual aid, right?
Yeah, and cooperation among cooperatives takes many forms. We share ideas, best practices. We did a show recently about cybersecurity and how we were sharing our personnel and expertise to help smaller co-ops and just help build that body of knowledge. But mutual aid is probably the biggest way that our operations folks tap into cooperation among cooperatives. So, Tommy, before we get too far into talking about what that looks like in practice, let's explain and define what mutual aid is and why it's important to co-ops.
Wow. This, there's of the 7 cooperative principles, this one is one of those that cooperatives depend on as much as any single one. As far as operations go, we have a commitment to community that we believe strongly in as well. But when it comes to cooperation between and among cooperatives, that's never more important. It's never more appreciated than during storm times.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw that back, the end of last year with Helene. Late in the hurricane season, we had a what I would consider an anomaly come through the state. In the crazy part, the reason I call it an anomaly is because this was a tropical event that, by and large, spared the coastline of South Carolina.
Right.
So, in these events, we expect to get help from our cooperative sisters and brothers in the upstate, and that didn't happen this time. Obviously, we can talk about that. But what mutual aid means to us is having that resource available when you need it or if it's needed. So, we obviously, it's important to us to get the help we need when, we're a coastal service area cooperative, so we could be prone to those storms, but then, and it's important to us to get that help, but it's also important for us to be able to provide that help when our other cooperatives in the state or out of state need, for one reason or another, need the help. So it's been tornadoes, it's been hurricanes, it's been snow events, ice events, just random wind events that we and other co-ops have requested. We've either received the help or other co-ops have requested the help from us. So it's that's what mutual aid means to us, is being able to request assistance when we need it, and then being able to give that assistance when one of our other co-ops need it. So.
Yeah, and there's really no better feeling than when we get a video of when we need mutual aid, when we get a video from a visiting co-op of the line of trucks leaving their co-op and coming to help us, and when we can post that on our social media, that really just makes a lot of people feel good that the cavalry's on the way and that we've got support coming and
So,
more hands.
Libby, what I'll say about that is we've shared those videos and we've also received those videos when folks come to us. And it always resounds with me. Every truck you see go by has a guy or lady or two in it that is leaving somebody back home.
Oh, yeah.
There's somebody there's coworkers here and there's family back home that's without whoever's in that truck until they get back.
And
So,
their absence is felt.
absolutely felt.
So as necessary as this is, there are sacrifices that are made because, like you're saying, at home, there's a household that doesn't have a dad in it for a period of days or weeks. And then at the co-op, there's another set of hands that are suddenly missing. So other people are pulling extra load.
That's right.
When we send our folks or we receive folks.
And a lot of times, we're like Tommy said, we were spared the majority of it, but a lot of times we're still dealing with the after effects of what's going on back at home. The cleanup might still be going on when those folks go out of town, and so it does definitely creates a ripple effect.
Yeah.
But talking about mutual aid and cooperatives, one of the things that, if I can recall way back to my early employee orientation days.
Oh boy.
Some years.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. Yes,
Was it
Ashby,
still
thank you for pointing that out.
Stone tablets then? Or?
Libby, I told you we've got guests. Let's keep it civil. One of the things that I think, might not necessarily be unique about co-ops, but helps during mutual aid, if I recall correctly, is that our systems are sort of built similarly. They're built to certain standards that echo what other cooperatives do. And so that allows our crews to hit the ground running a little bit faster when they go somewhere or somebody comes to us.
Our spec book pretty well mirrors most everywhere. We can go there and we know how to build those lines and frame those poles, and they use the same protection we use. It helps out a lot.
Right. It's just different, when we have those really large weather events and we have contractors coming in from out of state, like Pike or somebody like that, and they're coming in that aren't necessarily familiar with our system. I imagine there's like a learning curve, and do we provide help for those folks?
So we do. We provide, when they arrive on our system, we go through a process that we refer to as information sharing. We bring them in. That's the reason they all report here to the headquarters first. We have a process. Each one of them gets what we refer to as a packet, and it contains all of our system information in it and all the critical items on our system that we're required to share with them. OSHA actually mandates what we have to share with them. A lot of it. Now, we go beyond that, too, because we have some safety protocols, some operational protocols that we require that anybody visiting our system would have to know. Even another co-op, we share that same packet with them. And what Ashby led to is we have a construction standard for every co-op. Every co-op in the country uses a very similar construction standard. And by and large, they use one or both line voltages that are common among co-ops, and it's very common. Berkeley is a dual voltage cooperative as well, so our folks are versed in both of those voltages, and that's often the case across the country. So a lot of this stuff applies. What applies here at Berkeley applies very similar fashion at pick your co-op.
Right.
Plug in any co-op name.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, speaking about mutual aid, Ashby, you volunteered to assist with mutual aid over the years. You've been sent out here and there. I guess, what's sort of the driving force that makes you want to volunteer to help another co-op? And are there any mutual aid experiences that sort of stick out the most for you over the years? I know it's not as many years as I have.
Let's get
but
there.
But
I'm catching up. So, been several places all up and down the East Coast, as far as the line of New York's to almost to Texas.
Wow.
But the reason why we go is because whenever we're down here, it's a sight for sore eyes when them fellas is coming.
Oh, yeah.
We can, we rest assured that they're going to work just as hard as we will to help rebuild. Those are our people, they're helping rebuild here. That's your family, your house. We want them working as hard as we would, and when we go out of town, we give it all we got. Yeah. Because power to the people.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's sort of like, in your experiences, any trip in particular that sort of stuck out to you, or a situation while you were out in the field?
The past couple of times we've been out, over the past couple of years, we've been in really rural areas. So you're basically building lines for just a few people, Yeah. But one that really stuck out for me was up in New Jersey. That was like the first one I'd went on, and it was a Hurricane Sandy.
Sandy. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Superstorm.
Superstorm
It
Sandy.
was that was wild because we were really in the mountains, and we were actually putting servers back to a lot of members, and that place was messed up pretty good.
Yeah.
And it was just a whole different territory than we're used to in the mountains. It's a whole different animal,
Yeah.
So that one really stuck out for me.
Yeah, I bet. Last year was a busy hurricane season for the Southeast. We mentioned Helene, and thankfully Low Country dodged most of it, and we were able to get our repairs to our system done within a few days, and then send the guys off to help other co-ops. Tommy, where all did we send our crews to last year? And then, what does that coordination look like from your seat?
So this orchestrated chaos, Libby, is what that is. You're exactly right. We dealt with Helene on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. I think it was a Thursday it came in. Worked Thursday when we could, and then hit it hard Friday, cleared our system. And when our line crews and right-of-way crews went home Friday evening, they went home with instructions to pack, to prepare for mutual aid, because we knew the upstate of South Carolina and even Georgia in eastern Tennessee all got really, really impacted by Helene, far more severe than we did.
Yeah.
So in essence, we put a Band-Aid on at home so that we could respond to, something more severe to the upstate of South Carolina, and went, God, Libby.
A couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Some
so
of them.
it was. We actually had guys up for a full week, and then rotated them out and sent crews for another week. Almost 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had crews almost 3 weeks out.
Georgia was limping along, it seems like.
Yeah, we had a crew, the same foreman at Aiken, for 2 full weeks. We actually rotated his crew out and left the foreman there at Aiken for 2 full weeks.
Wow.
That's 3, 7, about 10 different co-ops.
Wow.
So yeah, we went
Just
to
for
10,
Helene.
10 different co-ops we responded to for Helene. So, and that includes our supply cooperative in Columbia, where we provided logistic support for them. So
Right. Yeah, I remember it was from Aiken all the way up. So, I mean, it was Midlands up. And like you said, we luckily got spared some of the worst of it. We still had some damage on our system. Ashby, I guess, sort of break it down for me a little bit. If we've got a system and a storm system that comes through and we're looking like a couple days restoration efforts, how does that sort of differ, I guess, from those, like when we had winter storm packs, when we knew we were going to be out for over a week, in terms of like the days that you put in? And I know OSHA has some certain regulations about how you rotate through and work. How do we approach it a little bit differently between like, a 1 or 2 day event versus like a week long plus event?
If it's a 1 or 2 day event, we really, when we can see the light, we're gonna really hit it as hard as we can, putting as many hours in as we can. When it's a 10-day event, you can't just, your body can't do it. You gotta hit that 16 and get 8 hours of rest. So whenever you wake up, it's hit the ground running.
So a short-term restoration is more of a sprint.
Yes, exactly.
To use a running analogy, and then if it's a week, 10 days or longer, it's a marathon.
You got to pace yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our members, sometimes
it's hard to understand.
It's hard to understand. I mean, and when you're the one out there in the field without, at your house for a week without power, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
It's miserable. So,
Yes.
I mean, life changes a lot. So, I mean, we understand. And, the main thing that we got to do is, yes, we want to get your power on as quickly as possible, but also as safely as possible. Because like we talked about, the linemen out in the field, they have families back at home.
Yep.
We want to keep them safe. And we want to make sure that we restore the power safely to the members' home, too, so there's not any other damage that occurs when the power comes back on.
Yep,
so, I mean, you've got to take your time and make sure that everything gets done correctly.
I think that ice storm you're talking about, we used to do a 36-hour run. Now we only do 24, and it's a hard stop at 24, which is very, very helpful, and it's a lot safer than it used to. Because 36 hours straight, and it could get dangerous.
So that's right. So we, as a rule of thumb, from the coordination standpoint, Micah, when we here at the headquarters, when we determine based on information that we gather during field assessments after a major event, based on the assessment information and what we're getting back from our district operations managers, we determined then if we can't get it on, if we don't think we can get the system on in a day, we're going to do two things. We're going to call in help, and then we're going to plan for that multi-day event right then. As soon as we know that there's going to be a multi-day event, we call get help in here, where you can get folks home and get the rest they need, but then have crews in the field. You got to have folks, we man our system around the clock. So we when it's a multi-day event, we call in help so that we can provide folks the rest they need as they have to have it. So.
And, Helene, for comparison, we wrapped up our repairs in a couple of days.
Exactly.
But about the time we were able to send guys, some co-ops were still trying to assess damage.
Right.
They couldn't get through their territory to see what all was broken. So, that's how you see the difference between, okay, we can wrap up repairs. They don't even know what all's broken yet.
Libby, our assessment crews were entering data on the system and entering data at Broad River Electric Co-op in the upstate before our line crews ever got there to help them.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? That's how important that early information and data is. You don't even know what resources you need until you do your assessments.
Right.
Yeah.
I was 45 minutes away at Coastal Co-op, and DOT hadn't even been able to go through there and cut trees yet when we showed up, and that was Saturday.
Yeah.
We had to cut trees out of the roads, not 4-lane roads, but 2-lane roads. It was pretty bad. We barely missed it.
Yeah. I grew up on Coastal System in
nice.
Walterboro. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So you went to Coastal. Where else did you go for Helene?
That's all I did.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we were there 5 or 6 days.
Yeah, and just, again, an hour's drive from here.
Yep.
They got tore up pretty bad, I think.
It was bad.
Yeah, my brother's family still lives there, and they were without power for a week.
Yep.
So, because they live out in the country.
Exactly. It's very rural.
Yep.
Beautiful place.
Yep.
Well, folks, we're a little bit more than halfway through the show, but we're talking with Mr. Tommy Harvey, the Vice President of Operations, and Mr. Ashby Freeman, a line foreman out of Goose Creek, and we're talking about all things mutual aid and what our operations and engineering department does to help during those times. But, when it comes to storms and mutual aid and everything else like that, at the cooperative, it's more of an all hands on deck kind of approach.
Yeah. And when the guys are out in the field for our own system, we've got folks whose jobs change from member services to cooking or getting lunches ready and taking them out in the field. But as far as mutual aid, we can't do a ton to support other co-ops until Helene, Micah and I, along with our colleague Peyton, we went to a sister co-op a few days after Helene had hit. And it was really the first time that Berkeley had sent non-operations folks to provide support where they could. We had employees from member services, accounting, energy services, helping out where they could at these co-ops that, were just in bad shape. And I'll say for our part, getting around was probably the biggest obstacle that, when you're visiting a really rural co-op, we're not familiar with that area, and trying to get where we need to get to support them without creating more work for them was a challenge. And at one point they were like, well, it's just the first road past the dairy farm.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
The big tree on the right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That burned down 10 years ago, but everybody else knows where the
yeah.
big tree used to be.
Oh, yeah, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we all have that, but and we're somewhat tech savvy, so we're like, can you drop a pin? And no.
Well, you're lucky if you have cell phone service in a place like that.
That's
when,
true.
Cell phone towers are down.
Power's
out.
Yeah. But, Micah, Helene wasn't your first time going out on the road. You followed some of our crews working in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. So it's a little while back. What was that like?
Well, Tommy can tell you what that was like for me.
Early on, anyway.
No, yeah, that was a really big event, and we sent a lot of crews because, obviously that was a major disaster, and so there were crews from all over the nation that were being sent to help out, and we had a large contingent that was sent there as well, and so
the whole Gulf Coast.
It was, and so they thought that it was worth our time to have somebody go out there and document the efforts of our crews as they were working in that situation, since it was such a historic storm. So I got to spend the 12 to 14 hour drive to going out there to
Were you going to Mississippi? Or?
Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Okay.
That was our first stop.
Yeah,
was Gulf Shores.
First stop was Gulf Shores, and I got about halfway there. Well, actually, I got an hour or so past Columbia, then had to turn around because one of our line trucks broke down.
Yep, we had a bucket broke down in Noonan, Georgia that you ended up going to Love Chevrolet or something
Yeah,
and picked up.
in
some
Columbia, I
parts
had to
for
go
us.
back and pick up but yeah, so first day, get down to the Gulf Shores, and I mean, it truly was a disaster area. I mean, it was right on the coast, so I mean, there was like sand piled up everywhere. Looked like it had snowed. I mean, it was 5-6 feet deep in some places with the sand. And so I immediately stopped to try to start taking some pictures. And the first place that I pulled off, I mean, I had been on the island all of maybe 10 minutes, pulled off the side of the road to take a picture, and my car sunk down to the axles.
Oh my!
I already knew where that was going.
Okay.
So Micah
all been there.
decided to pull in beside where we were working, and he drove beyond, staying clear of where we were working. He pulled beyond us and get off of what would have been the road, but it was a old sandy, silt-filled ditch.
Yep.
I was
Set of
done.
s-
Yeah.
Quicksand.
Snow drift. That was a sand drift.
So yeah, 10 minutes onto the job, I was stuck in a ditch and my car was not moving. So I had to walk down the field, walk down the road. And the first person I came to was our good old friend, Mr. Tommy Harvey.
Right.
And he had to pull me out of the ditch. So
It happens.
So much for not causing more work.
no, yeah. Well, I mean, beyond, pulling hapless communications professionals out of the ditch, Tommy, what was, like I said, that was a major disaster. And that's different from your everyday. What was your experience like during Katrina?
So I'll tell you a couple of things. One is Gulf Shores was a little different for me because that was more of a high water event for them. They had huge storm surge there. Gulf Shore is obviously right on the coast and just incredible event for the erosion that you saw, and the sand was crazy. The National Guard was there, and I'm sure Micah remembers this. The National Guard was there, the county and city government was there. They were literally scraping the road and piling sand. There was a couple of days before you could see pavement.
Wow.
They were literally scraping the sand back. And when they did that, when they finally got down to the road surface, you could see the 4, 5, 6 feet of sand that had just built up across the first block of the town.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Just crazy. That was bizarre to me to see that. I'd never seen that. I didn't see that in Charleston after Hugo. I didn't see that.
Right.
Then we worked there a couple of days in Gulf Shores, and then we went west to Gulfport, Mississippi. And that they suffered the wind. They had the big wind event. Gulfport itself then was a very small town. I would consider it a small town, probably Somerville-ish kind of. Then, but just to step out of town and go into some of the areas where people lived and where we were working was just devastating. We were in there another 10 days or so. It was just incredibly devastating. Houses either gone or pushed off their foundation. Just crazy stuff, man. People devastated.
Yeah. And it's a gut punch to see that level of devastation and people hurting.
Yep. We were in Lake Charles, Louisiana, after Laura, I think it was.
There's two of them.
Yep. There was houses 15, 20 foot off the air. All it was a stilts left.
Wow.
And this is way off the coast. I say way off, 5 miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wild.
Still at sea level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Huge marsh area.
Yeah, that place is called Cameron Parish, I'm pretty sure. Where we were.
Well, hurricanes get a lot of attention, but, this winter's been busy. We sent some crews recently to Virginia in the wake of Winter Storm Blair. So, Ashby, do you have a preference helping out with summer storms versus winter storms? I'm sure there's fewer snakes during a winter storm.
The mosquitoes are what are bad. The snakes, they ain't but a couple of those, but the mosquitoes.
There's a few of them.
Mosquitoes,
Yes,
no-see-ums,
especially if you
sand
go to
gnats.
Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
That's- So, yeah, I'd rather work a summer storm, though.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can work a whole lot faster and less clothes. 'Cause you got to bundle up on those ice storms, snowstorms.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thick gloves on.
Driving conditions are crazy too.
Absolutely,
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you got to worry about when it comes to that.
I'd much rather hurricane.
Yeah, I mean, the Low Country got several inches of snow this winter, but I'm like, ugh, give me a summer storm any day. This is no fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm a Southern boy, born in Florida, lived in the South my entire life. As far north as I got was Tennessee, and I saw plenty of snow up there, enough to know that
Nope.
that's not the way I want to live.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, folks, this has been another edition of Power Talk. Went by quickly today, but thanks for tuning in. This is the official broadcast of your electric cooperative, and you can catch up on past episodes on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. And as always, get a behind-the-scenes look at our YouTube channel. So until next time, this is Power Talk, signing off.